I was asked to tell you about my approach to research, to what they called my career. I'm anesthesiologist from education, and I'm a very decent person, so it's my work and not my career. Yeah? This is what I did my whole life, and I'm going to tell you what happened, how I came to research, what I did, or what I'm currently doing. I have no conflict of interest with that, with one or two exceptions, and I will show you later on. When I was... Okay, so when I finished my school and graduated in 1988, it was a different time compared to nowadays. I'm at the end of the baby boomer generation, and at that time there were plenty of students with unlimited access to the university. So you had to fight for that. It was difficult, and the dropout rate at these days were approximately 40 to 60%, depending on which type of studies you decided for. And in 1988, I did my promotion, I finished my studies, and unfortunately, unlike as today, I did not get immediately a job. I was not offered. In Vienna, where I was situated and where I still live, you had to wait for almost 3 years to start a practice, what we call, nowadays called a practical year. At that time it was called turnus, lasted 3 years, and then you became a local practitioner. So actually I had something to do in between, and in 1993 I started my specialist training. In 1998 I became specialist, and in 2001 I received my venia docendi, which is the allowance to teach. And from there on, I all the time worked in the Vienna General Hospital. Where do I have to put that? Because it does not work properly. So the time in between my studies and my work as an anesthesiologist, I was offered a job in an IVF center in Vienna with the fathers of the first in vitro fertilization baby. I did vaginal ultrasound and so on. And they introduced me to science. It was a couple of years, a couple of months after Chernobyl. And my first publication was about radioactivity in seminal fluid. And they attracted me to do this, and this is what I have done then. Where do I have to put it? Yeah? So in 1993 I started to work in the Vienna General Hospital, which is also a university clinic, and it was moving from into the new building at that time, and there was plenty of physicians needed because we also had the old pavilion system in the old hospital, and it was brand new, and there were lots of anesthesiologists searched for. We currently do about 50,000 procedures a year, and we have roughly 8,200 ICU beds in anesthesia only, and I think the internal department has another 30 or 40. And we overlook approximately 5,000 intensive care patients, and quite a lot of them, approximately a quarter or a third, are on extracorporeal circulation, like renal replacement therapy. When I started my education at the university clinic, and I hope you value this here, there was no PhD program. Nobody introducing me into research, into scientific practice and so on. So I asked elder colleagues to help them with their research, participated in collecting patients, and these were my first co-authorships. And when I came to the To the intensive care ward, I started to do my own projects, and for a very long time I worked with the cold system, which is a double indicator dilution technique, where you can graduate liver function and volume status of the patient. And I did some publications in transplanted patients or patients with ongoing liver failure. And later on, I also had to, which is very common in our program, before being allowed to apply for Venia Docendi, you have to be abroad in another country doing some research or at least work a little bit. And I have decided to go to Göran Hedenstierna in Uppsala in Sweden. I, at that time, didn't like America. I still do not. And this is why I chose Sweden, and I did work in lung failure. And the study, you can see, was published very late. So it was a circulating paper, yeah, sent to a journal, came back, major revisions, didn't make it, resent, and so on. So it took a couple of time. And within this time, I also developed my fields of interest, and this is clearly organ dysfunction and failure, especially liver transplants or lung transplantation, and also the going hand in hand with the organ support. And sepsis, I was then in a network of a couple of colleagues within Europe, and we developed ideas, and I participated. And I also tell you that I have several other interests, like ethical problems, especially with end-of-life decisions and so on. And I'm interested in education and teaching. And later on, you always question why you are interested in a particular field or how you develop your interests. And you can see this is a publication from 2010. This is mortality in intensive care. And you see, it is not the same all over Europe. It's depending on the patients who have access to intensive care. It's depending on our education. It's depending on the resources we can offer these type of patients. And it's quite a little bit changing. So my continuous interest is, and this is I'm doing still, participating in publications or do them, is liver failure, extracorporeal liver support. I worked with the Mars system. I do now work with the cytosorbent system, and we are continuously doing these things and go on. When you start your career, you probably have an aim. So for quite a lot of people, it's becoming a professor, and then they stop, they quit. This is not what I could advise you. It's better to continuously research, do some 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 publications a year, but show your continuous interest, as I think I properly did. I have about more than 100 publications, and every year 2, 3, 4. Together with my Venia Docendi becoming a professor, I started in the Austrian Society of Anesthesia, Reanimation and Intensive Care, and I have been there for more than 20 years, a board member, to influence the course of anesthesia and intensive care in Austria. And I think I have implemented quite a lot of things. Not all of them were successful, but I made the Austrian Society their own PCO for the congresses. So the congresses were profitable, which resulted in the implementation of a lot of working groups in the Austrian Society. As a representative of the Austrian Society, I engaged in the, I don't know whether you know, the Cobatrice project. It was started a couple of years after the millennium, where it was based on the competency-based training program for intensive care. And there was an ongoing fight at that time between the ones who said, we always would like to be anesthesiologists and intensivists, and the ones who said, we need to have intensivists, no matter which approach they take. And in Austria, it's currently like that. We are anesthesiologists and intensivists in our specialization. The internal departments are allowed, if they work on an intensive care, to call them intensivists, but the way or the access was closed for a lot of specialities. They just wanted to have it in the name, trauma surgeons and intensivists. They simply go once a week through their ward and say, I'm intensivist. The work, it's us, we are doing that. Yeah? So I've engaged in typical issues with professional policy in this society, like burnout among intensivists and nursing staff and so on. And we also have founded an umbrella society for all people or all societies which provide or contribute to intensive care. And this was the Federation of Austrian Intensive Care Societies. And I was the first president of that, and I managed to include all the 6 or 7 specialities to include under this umbrella. The topic I told you, I was also involved in end-of-life decisions in intensive care. This is a huge ethical problem, and this will grow. And I was working, I was co-author of this consensus paper, which gave at least a little bit of direction how you should treat intensive care patients, and when treatment is futile and it is no longer ethical to keep them on the ward. Yeah? And I also have worked about the policy or the attitude towards anesthesiologists. And as I mentioned, for me, it's my working life. It's not a career, but this discriminates anesthesiologists and intensivists most likely from surgeons. They can do 1 or 2 valve repairs and they have a career. Yeah? So it's also a matter of character. What I really early realized was that our anesthesiology department did not have a lab in the huge hospital. The old head of department didn't want to have one, or forgotten to show up when they ask how many square meters you need for your research. And at that time I was in a working group involved in sepsis, and I managed to get a paid study. And the reimbursement of this study I invested in my research lab. It was just a sign on my ward, but we managed to buy a -80 freezer and all the lab kits for a couple of years, and I did a lot of publications, and I had a lot of PhD students, and I managed to have 3 or 4 people to get habilitated as well. What me continuously interested was extracorporeal circulation, liver failure and lung failure, and I read quite a lot of these publications early, and I was sort of all the time interested in that field, and this ended up in a startup I founded together with a colleague, Roman Ulrich, and we were developing a modern decarboxylation system. Lung failure is an entity which most of the people see as the failure to the uptake of oxygen, but it is to about 30% also the inability to get rid of the CO2. And you don't need a heart lung machine for doing that. And at that time, there was a competitor from us on the market, A-Lung, who had developed the device in America. It was a smaller heart lung machine, and we developed a completely new device and had about funding of 5 or 6 million euro, but we went bankrupt. Yeah, we could not manage to get the fundings for the FDA approval, and in 2022 or 3 we went bankrupt. As a spin-off of this device, with a group, I managed to get a European Union grant, because what we realized with this device is that there was no ongoing research in the development of new membranes. If the oxygenators did not work out, they simply made it bigger. But the trend nowadays is to make everything smaller. And we realized that the current membranes on the market are not sufficient. And this resulted in a project. It's called Biomembros, and it's I think 4 or 5 technical universities developing a new membrane, and I will be the one who gets this membrane for testing, and hopefully we will succeed. It's a 3 million euro project, and it's going till 27. When I lost my intensive care ward some years ago, because a medical career is not always straightforward. Yeah? It might be bumpy. Yeah? And something hit me, and I lost my intensive care ward. I had to go to another one. I lost my research infrastructure, and I thought, we also have to do something for the nurses, yeah, the nursing staff, because we lost in Austria a lot of nursing staff due to COVID. Yeah? Nursing staff and physicians were heavily working during COVID. All the others were sitting at home getting paid for home office. Then the hospital staff worked heavily, and after COVID crisis, they were asking for remuneration, and they got 500 euros each, and then there was a quarrel whether they had to pay taxes or not. So a lot of nurses left. And we are trying to get nurses, nursing staff into our hospitals because we need them. Yeah? And one way to try to attract them is to make their education also an academic one. And we set up it's not a PhD program, but they end with a bachelor or a master. And to do similar things to they have to produce one paper, and this is mainly a review or a synthesis of 5 or 6 literature publications to a particular topic, plus their education. And as I'm still interested in research, I took the opportunity to found my second startup. It's next generation fluid monitoring. I was offered to participate. It's a high frequency ECG where you try to recognize with artificial intelligence, with pattern recognition, the fluid status of the patient. And a couple of days ago, we did our first animal experiment in Graz, where we had the swine bleeding. These were things I learned actually in Uppsala, in Sweden, where I did the rest of my PhD. And some 15 years or some 12 years later, I managed to implement it into my things. Besides, you have all showed me your presentations, and you have also mentioned where you have presented them, I try to be on as many congresses as possible, not only medical ones. I'm very proud to being able to see the annual meeting in Davos, the economic meeting, which interests me a lot. And I do organize quite a lot of congresses for the Austrian Society or for other societies like LICAGE, where I was secretary for a couple of years, or Euro-Neuro, the anesthesiologists. And to give you, I said career might be sometimes a bumpy road, and this is my advice, to take care on some particular things. Yeah? You might make a fantastic career, but you should also have a family. I'm not sportive, but my daughters all play handball. They win the Austrian championship, and I'm proud to know the handball halls in Budapest and in Győr, where they always drive to have their competitions. I had also the opportunity to become a model with some anesthesiologists from Vienna. I'm very glad that I did not. And life might be bumpy. My third daughter had a serious bleeding when she was born, and it for a couple of years was not clear whether she will be a healthy child or she might be a handicapped one. Meanwhile, she's a healthy child. But at that time, I did an MBA, and this, together with my family situation, made me thinking that I don't need a leading position. Yeah? I can do my research, my interests, and I'm not interested in politics, in finances, and all that stuff. I have also made mistakes, and I have lost a couple of things. Yeah? I've been bankrupt with a startup. I have a couple of years, 2 or 3 years ago, I have sold my Austin Healey. I have bought some 30 years ago and always had the wish to restore it, not by my own, but I have seen me driving. Now I'm an old white man. Yeah, it makes no sense to drive such a car. I probably couldn't enter it properly without. And I told you I have lost my intensive care. You probably don't understand. This is an Austrian joke. I'm currently driving Volvo, and Schaden means damage. And Volvo was promising to beware me from any damage. Actually, this is the name who dropped me out of my intensive care ward. Yeah? So, and I have tried to do several other things. I'm interested in architecture, and I have built my own house for renting out. This is my retirement fund. And I would also like to end with an aphorism. It's from Peter Drucker. He is an Austrian who moved to America. He's an economist, and he told us it's not only that we know that life is lifelong learning, but we should also know how to learn and how to teach. And congratulations, your PhD program is an excellent example of how to teach, and I hope you value that. Thank you. Are there any questions?
Yes, statistics.
No statistics, please. 3 children, 1 marriage.
Okay. So you can understand a little bit statistics as well, but it's true for everything that I think that teaching is one of the best way of learning. This is what I wanted to share. And ask about burnout, actually. What advice you have against burnout?
I took, or together with a psychiatrist, we made a study among burnout intensivists. I have no real advice. We know that the rate of burnout in this type of employees is high. Yeah. Also addiction. Yeah. All of you probably know someone who is addicted to alcohol or drugs. Yeah. And this holds true for physicians and nursing staff as well. You don't realize that, but this type of people disappear. Yeah. So I can't give you an extra advice, but if you live a decent life, yeah, you try to have more than your job, then you are on safe ground.
If I may, I would have one remark and one question. The remark is, my entire own PhD journey was about acute liver dysfunction in the intensive care and extracorporeal blood purification. So I would count myself as personally acquainted with your studies. If you check your Google Scholar, you will see a couple of citations coming from my papers as well. So I can't tell you how exciting it is for me to see you here in person, the name that I have been reading in the author lists for many years.
Thank you.
My question is, you had a long and productive scientific journey. And I'm sure you have met, both in your own country, in your home country, and in other countries as well, many research teams that have seniors and juniors and associated staff. And some of them were more successful, and some of them were less successful, I imagine. In your opinion, what makes a successful research team for young researchers like you see in the room today?
The first thing is interest. You have to have interest in the topic you choose. It doesn't. You probably can find interest if someone tells you, but if it is a field you're not interested in, you will drop out sooner or later. So you have to find. For me, it was intensive care and end-of-life decisions and something like that. Yeah. The second thing is a problem in Europe, in your country, in my country. It's the funding. Yeah. I had a huge progress when I received 150,000 euro from the Exaigris trial, because I did some 40 patients. Yeah? And I invested this money into my lab. Yeah? If you don't receive funding, it's extremely difficult. You have to restrict on studies. They are not financially extremely expensive, like surveys or something like that. But once you would like to do a randomized controlled trial, we know all that. Yeah? In Austria, we have either to include a statistician or we have to pay for that. We have to go through the ethical committee. You need an office person who prepares all the paperwork. Yeah? Otherwise, you're sitting on weekends. Yeah? And that's not the way it works. So the second advice is try to find an institution where funding is guaranteed. Either you join a group which receives funding and incorporates you with your research, or you try to make it on your own, which is difficult enough.
My question is regarding the startups. So we as physicians usually don't train in that field or that aspect, unfortunately. However, I was wondering what inspired you or what helped you to start those startups, and what suggestion do you have for young researchers or physicians who are interested in that field?
My first and most valuable suggestion is don't start that with investing your own money. My colleague and me, we had an idea, and as it is, we had a so-called technical transfer department. And we went there and we said, we gave them our protocol. And if you know the administration in Vienna, Austria, the technical department, this is most likely 3 to 5 people. They cost $500,000 a year, and they try to generate income. So whenever you have an idea, they might sell it early. We didn't even manage that. Yeah? They just told us, extremely nice idea, but we can't do anything for you, which is on one side bad, but on the other side good, because then the startup belonged to us. It did not belong to the employer. Yeah, they gave us the blessing. And on the other hand, they gave us some addresses of Austrian research funding for startups. And I really have to say this is excellent in Austria. Whenever you have an idea, you can apply in the Austrian Economic Bank or the Forschungsförderungsfonds, also it's research funding fund. You can fund, you can apply, and you can have a funding of couple of thousand euros, or we received, I think, 200,000 euro, which makes sense to start something, to get the patents, to employ someone, to find an office, and the way. The second startup was more easy, because in October or November, we received a call from the Austrian Economics Bank, and they called us and said, it's end of the year, you had a nice project. Don't you have another nice project? We have the money.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the colorful presentation. And my question is that you said that you were not fond of doing research in America. May I ask you what was the reason why?
I think it's a personal attitude. Yeah, I think the research capacities of America are overwhelming, but I highly appreciated the time in Sweden. I was sitting in the lab, but I could travel around, and it were not hundreds of kilometers. I just could manage without a car, with a bike, and so on. And if you are not in the center of America, like New York or Boston or something, you wouldn't like to do research in the middle of Utah or something like that. Yeah? So it's a personal decision. Yeah, the opportunities in America are huge. Yeah, but if you try to find those possibilities in Europe, you can definitely find them.
You told that you have a relationship in Dior, so and I came today from Dior, and I would like invite you for us, so maybe we can continue this discussion and talking about my research topic, and we can find, I think, many common things. So because I was worked with the liver transplantation, primary hepatocytes, so now I joined to this group.
Most
and
welcome.
My boss or my husband is a leadership by a car company, you know each very well. So and he now as a continuously speaking in Germany. So my Deutschsprachkenntnis ist nicht so gut. So vielen Dank für diese sehr wunderbare Vorlesung. Danke.